Hi everyone, it's Moira Money here, and I'm very excited to welcome you to the new interview series on the Successful Linguist, where I'll be interviewing a successful linguist every month. And today I'm with Emma Goldsmith. Hi Emma, welcome to the call and thank you so much for taking part.
Hi, Maura. Well, it's nice to be with you. And it's so exciting that I'm going to be the first person you're interviewing.
Yes,
That's
you're
great.
kicking off the series. So first
Mm.
of all, would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners, please?
Mm. Well, as you said, my name's Emma Goldsmith. I'm a Spanish to English translator. I'm a medical translator, and I've been doing this for 21 years now.
Oh wow,
I live
okay.
in Madrid. Well, I live in a little village outside Madrid in Spain. Um, and a little bit of my personal life. I'm married. My husband is Chilean. We have two teenage children, two boys,
Okay,
Leo, who's 18, and Benjamin, who's 16. We
okay.
also have a dog who's
Mm-hmm.
called Hannah and a cat who's called Pancha. So now you know my whole family. You've met them all.
Okay, great. And I read on your website that you trained as a nurse before actually becoming a translator. And could you tell us a little bit about that and why did you decide to change careers?
Right. Well, I didn't decide to change careers. I didn't wake up one morning and say, right, I've had enough nursing. I'm going to be a translator. It wasn't
Okay.
quite as smooth as that.
Okay.
I trained as a nurse, as you said. That was at St Thomas's Hospital in London.
Hmm.
That's where I was living. And then I moved out to Madrid, where my husband was. And at that stage, I didn't speak any Spanish at all, nothing.
Oh wow.
I had the opportunity to learn Spanish at school, and I thought, what do I want to learn Spanish for? That's no use to me. So I went out to Spain, didn't speak any Spanish.
Hmm.
So nursing wasn't an option at that stage because of the communication problems.
Right. Okay.
For the same reason, it wasn't an option to become a translator.
Hmm.
Um, but I had another string to my bow. I'm a violinist, or I was a violinist,
Oh
and I
wow.
played in a trio. We played in a trio for several years, in fact. And of course, I didn't need Spanish to play the violin, which
Yeah.
was
Sure.
good.
Hmm.
Um, so we played for several years, and my obviously my Spanish started. I learnt Spanish at that stage, and I had a friend, an English friend in Madrid, who was a translator, and she said, hey, I've got lots of work. Now you speak Spanish, why don't you become a translator? It all sounded, well, why not? Give it a go. She said, I know of course, we're talking about the very beginning of the 90s,
Hmm.
very end of the 80s, and there was no internet or anything. So it was limited to your local agencies,
Yeah.
it was all very local then.
Hmm.
She said the agencies that she worked with in Madrid were always very keen to get to know native English people who translated because they needed people obviously translating into their native language.
Sure. Hmm.
So she said, why don't you come along when I'm giving in my work one day and I'll introduce them to you. And that's the way I sort of moved in. It was a very gradual move, very low key to begin with. You can imagine my translating skills were, zero.
Hmm.
Um, I like to think that my writing skills in English were good. But to begin with, it was all general work. It wasn't medically focused. It was the stuff that the local Madrid agencies had.
All
And that's
right.
how I gradually moved into translation.
Oh wow. Okay. So so it's really by word of mouth that you found your first sort of paying clients.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. Yeah.
What do you do today to market your services?
Well, of course, the first agencies were the local ones.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a little while, I started branching out. And I did then a year's course to learn a bit more about translation in itself.
Okay.
And after I'd done that, I felt I was ready to start marketing myself a bit, writing to do other agencies elsewhere in Spain. But now, moving on,
Mm-hmm.
I do very little active marketing. Maybe I should do more. Um, but I do the active, it's not so active the marketing I do, but I'm very active on social media,
Okay.
as you know, with my blog and that
Yeah.
sort of thing. In forums, I do a lot of networking. And so I do get a lot of inquiries coming in to me. And so I guess it's a sort of passive sort of marketing that I do. That's how I
Okay.
get my clients now.
And do you work mostly with direct clients or with agencies?
I'd say, well, definitely agencies, more with agencies, maybe
Okay.
80% with agencies,
All right.
20% with clients. The direct clients that I have, they're hospitals, research groups, a couple of medical journals, that sort of thing. I prefer working with agencies in a way because the good agencies, the ones who pay the rate that you suggest,
Yes.
you can tell, apart from the rates that they pay, you can tell when there's an agency is good because they don't have a fast turnover of project managers, do they?
Hmm.
So so the agencies that I work with, I've got the same contacts there as I've had for years, some of them.
Okay.
They are comfortable working at the agency. They're good terms. They're obviously on good terms with their
Hmm.
bosses, and that helps things so much.
Yeah, very true.
Those are the agencies that I like to work for. And
Okay.
agencies, they do the work that I don't particularly want to do. That they're finding the clients, that's great.
Hmm.
That they solve they iron out the initial problems that they might have. They might format the documents for me, all that sort of thing. If somebody else does that for me, well, that's great. And then, of course, they'll do the proofreading afterwards, which is a
Hmm.
pretty important stage.
Yeah, of course. Ah, interesting. Okay. And just coming back briefly to your area of specialization, the medical field now, I guess, I thought for you it would be quite obvious to specialize in that field just because of your medical background. But I'm often asked by translators who are just starting out, which area of specialization they should choose. What would you say in answer to that?
Well, I wouldn't say it's so much which specialization they should choose. I think the specialization chooses you. Obviously, in my case,
It,
coming from a different background, then
yeah.
obviously there was little choice. It was obvious. So people who come from another career, people who've studied other things, it's clear for them.
Hmm.
So presumably you're talking more about maybe bilingual people because their family is a bilingual family,
For
maybe people who've
example, yeah.
yeah, people who studied a language, say French degree they've done, and then they're wondering what to do.
Exactly.
They're going to become a translator, but a general translator. Well, I think, everybody's got hobbies. Everybody's interested in some sort of things. I love sport. I play a bit of tennis. I love watching football on the telly.
Oh, really?
And so if I had to choose a specialization and I didn't have the medical one,
Hmm.
then I'd go for sport. In fact, I have done a few translations.
Oh, great.
Sometimes they even combine. I've done a text a few months back on anti-doping regulations in football, and so you get the medical input, and
Yes.
that's the best of both worlds.
Brilliant, yes.
But no, but people need to think what do they like doing? Do they like gardening? If you like something, if you
Hmm.
like traveling, anything that you're interested in, those are the things that you're going to be interested in researching. So when you get those texts coming in, it's going to be interesting for you and you can go on increasing your knowledge. You're starting a step ahead of other people who haven't got that interest at all.
True. Hmm.
And so I guess that's the way you could look for a specialization, what you're really interested in.
Great, thank you for that. Okay, and I saw on your blog that you blog quite a bit about Trados Studio. Do you think that all translators should be using a CAT tool?
Uh, in a word, yes.
Okay.
Yes. But if you'd asked me 10 years ago, I would have said no, because I gave it a try about 10 years ago.
Hmm.
I had heard a lot about it, um, how you never have to translate the same sentence twice. I thought, great, my productivity is going to soar. I'm going to, this is obviously what translators are using.
Hmm.
So I got a cat tool. I tried it out and I couldn't understand it. I was writing in little boxes. I had no translation memory, of course, at that stage. It was
Okay.
empty. So
Yeah,
I was getting no repeated segments.
sure.
And I didn't give it long enough. I gave up. And then a few
Uh,
years later, 2 or 3 years later, an agency said to me, look, you did a translation for us a few months ago. We've got the same text back, but the client's made some changes. If you had a cat tool, if you'd done this translation in a cat tool, we'd give it back to you, and this would take you 10 minutes to do. And as it is, we're giving it back to you because we need you. You did it the first time round,
hmm.
but it's going to be like a new translation almost. Um, so I thought, I can see now why cat tool could be useful. So
Mm-hmm.
I made a second effort. Um, and this time I decided I needed to get some training. I went to a 1 day course, an 8 hour day
Okay.
in Madrid. It was a face-to-face course with, there was a trainer there who was able to answer our questions and explain why she used it and that sort of thing. That was really good to get a grasp of what it was all about.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I mean, all my translations go through Trados, go through Studio.
Okay.
Um, I mean, the terminology, a client gives you a glossary. They usually give it to you in Excel,
Yeah.
but you put it into a term base, and you get it coming up. You get the word, and you see that you get the little red bracket over the top,
Mm-hmm.
and that way you can be consistent, and that's the important thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
You don't
definitely.
skip sentences.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the productivity that okay, I haven't translated the same sentence twice possibly, but it's very, very useful. In medical work as well, you get things that have to follow templates.
Mm-hmm.
In medicine boxes, the leaflet you get out, that has to have a certain format.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my translation memory, of course, I've got that format already.
Sure.
So the different statements are all there and they're always consistent. They have to be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And so for medical translators, it's essential. And I think it is for most translators nowadays.
I agree, actually.
Yeah.
I do.
Do you use one?
Yeah, I do. Yes, of course. I
Do.
use Trados
Yeah.
Studio as well.
Right.
Okay. I started out with a cross actually, but I think Trados is actually better if we're allowed
Yeah.
to say
Yeah.
that on video.
No
Okay.
comparison. There's no comparison.
No. Okay. And another big topic is, of course, the question of rates. How did you come up with your rates?
Right. Well, to begin with, going back to my Madrid agencies 20 years ago, they said this is what we pay, and I said, well, that's great, no problem.
Okay.
I wasn't aware of the I didn't even really think that it should be me, in fact, who was setting the rate.
Oh,
But if you
okay.
think of it as, as we're providing a service,
Mm-hmm.
if I ask if I ring up a plumber who's going to come and I don't know fix a new shower unit in my bathroom, I'm not going to say, right, I've got, 100 euros. Can you do it for this price?
No,
I'm
sure.
going to wait for, well, I'm going to wait for the plumber to say, this is what I'm going to charge, and then I
Mm-hmm.
can decide whether to go on with him or not.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same. I get an inquiry from an agency or from a client, and they say, well, what's your rate? And I can give them my rate. And a lot of them will say, no, that's too much for me. But then I think that probably means that that's the way I want to go. If maybe 2 out of 10 inquiries actually work out, then that's great. That means I'm charging about the right amount. If everybody agrees with my rate, then I'm clearly charging too little.
Yeah, yeah,
So
true. Oh, wow. Okay. So 2 out of 10 is the ratio that you go for.
I don't go for it. I think that's what happens in real life.
Okay,
People
interesting.
say, what's your best rate? Well, I don't have a best rate. I have a rate and
Yeah.
I'll give it to them. And
Mm-hmm.
if we can go ahead on that, that's great. And if they haven't got that budget, no problem. That's where, our email exchange will stop there. And that's all.
Okay. Well, thank you. And as an established translator in your field, I suppose you get quite a lot of work. And as you said earlier, you've got a big family, including the cat and the dog. So I was just wondering how you balance your work and personal life.
Right. Well, I think you're asking the wrong person because I'm a bit of a workaholic. Um,
Okay.
So maybe my advice won't be and I'm sure other people could give you much better advice or give other translators better advice. When the
Mhm,
children were small,
mhm,
um, it was kind of easier. People think having small children in the house, you're a freelancer, you're working from home, that must be really hard. How do you balance it and that sort of thing? But I found that really quite easy because obviously the children were the priority.
mhm.
They were small. We had to take them off to their football matches, off to their music lessons, and drop them off at school, and all those sort of things that everybody does. If one's ill, then they're at home. And so what people have to do is make sure that you don't accept projects with very tight deadlines because you never know what's going to come up.
Mhm.
Um, But as they've grown up, they don't need me so much. They don't want me to be with them anymore, in fact.
Yeah.
And so now is the stage when I've got to really think, am I spending enough time with them because I no longer have to,
Yeah.
and I could easily fill my day with 14 hours, 16 hours working in front of the computer. So now we make sure we have our meals together, family meals. I never sit down in front of the computer with a sandwich. I don't have crumbs in my keyboard. My desk is quite a mess, but I
Okay.
don't have crumbs in my keyboard. And so yes, we always have our meals together. And in the mornings, I start off my day going off for a run with my husband and with our dog, of course. She makes sure that we have to go out.
Yeah.
No, but it's good. It's good. It's a time that we can spend together, and it's a time when, as translators, we lead a very sedentary life.
Yeah.
So it's great to go out and do some exercise and then come back for the rest of the day. So that's another way that I try and balance out my working life with my family life.
That's brilliant, actually. So you've got a set morning routine which involves your family, which I think is great.
Yeah,
Great.
that's the same.
Okay, and one last question before we wrap up. Could you share with us the most important lesson that you learned along the way, or maybe something that you would have liked to know at the beginning of your translation career?
I think because I came into translation maybe in a slightly different way. Most people are more clear about what they're doing, and a lot of people nowadays have a translation degree tucked under their arm. They're all ready to start, but I didn't. So I had a lot of learning to do as I was working to begin with, and so I was very aware of that, and I was trying to improve my technique. But then I think after, say, 2 or 3 years, I began to feel rather too comfortable. Um, I had the work coming in, wasn't getting any complaints. So I thought, I'm doing this pretty well. And I think there's a danger there of stagnation. I think that the important thing for us is professional development, not as a word that's thrown around now. How many hours of CPD have you done
Yeah.
this year and that sort of thing. I think it's really important. I think that we can improve our subject matter skills. We can learn more about translation techniques. We can get better at using our computers and that sort of thing. And I think that if you can start that from the very beginning and take it on board, nowadays it's so much easier. There are webinars, you can belong to translators associations. There are all sorts of opportunities now for networking among other translators, get onto forums, ask for advice. It's just ongoing learning, and I think that's really important to keep abroad of everything is that's happening. Really,
Yeah.
I think that's very important. I think that I let that lapse to begin with, but I'm making up for it now.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much for sharing that. And thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today and for sharing your insight. Actually, it was really fun. Um, Emma has got a fantastic blog, everyone. It's called Signs and Symptoms of Translation, and I've put the link below the video, so please do go and check it out. And if you like this video, please share it with your colleagues. And thank you so much for watching, and see you next time on The Successful Linguist. Bye.
Bye bye.